main goals of TSAMM was to bring it onto the web and make it mobile in a way that could be easily used from mobile devices like your cell phone, your smartphone, your tablets. The site's designed with responsive design, meaning that all the screens work and fit just nicely on those smaller screens. So TSAMM is a web-based solution. It is not a piece of software you need to put on your computer. All you need is an internet connection and a web browser. Any web browser will do. I happen to be in Chrome here. So you get to TSAMM by opening your browser, and you'll go to www.TSAMM. Again, that double M stands for Mission Manager, if that helps you remember it. So TSAMM.org. And the screen you see here will be where you'll land. This is your login page. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Login Now button. And there's a few things I want to point out here. First of all, you'll notice if you look up in the URL that we're no longer in TSAMM.org. We've jumped out to SAUSS.net. And what that is THQ's Active Directory Authentication. And what that's doing is going out to the THQ servers and checking if you have a valid account at the Army. So I say that for a couple reasons. Number one is that if there's trouble here, if you can't log in here, if THQ servers are down, you wouldn't be able to log into TSAMM. So our site is up 99.9% of the time, but we do rely on the THQ server being up for you to be able to log in. Your username is going to be your email address, your full email address. Your password is not necessarily your Lotus Notes password, though. It is your Active Directory password. If you're unsure of what that might be or how to get that, contact your DHQ IT staff, and they'll be able to either let you know what it is or how to reset it, but they can work with you on that. So I'm going to go ahead and log in, and this is going to be similar to what you'll see when you log in. I'll walk you through just a few things you need to know. Number one will be your profile and the settings found in your profile and what those mean. Second will be creating an agenda item. Third would be approving an agenda item. Fourth would be submitting it to DHQ. And then last would just be how to find it and how to research after the fact, after it's already gone to DHQ. So we'll start with the profile. To get there, I'm going to click on the photo in the upper right corner. And that takes me to Lieutenant Keith's profile. There are several settings here that I want to make sure you're aware of. First of all, this is where you would upload a photo. THQ has mandated that all officers do have photos in here. For officers, they do require that the photo be in uniform. They also strongly encourage that any employees have a photo as well, and that is a professional type image. They do strongly encourage that everybody have one on there, and you'll see the benefit of that as we go through. So this is where you would do that. Super simple. You choose a file that's on your machine. It'll let you crop that, and then you would just hit the upload button. There are several other settings. You can change your time zone, your email address. If you want to receive notifications from TSAMM on your cell phone, you can enter your phone number there. It'll send a verification code to your phone, and then you'll put that number back in, and then your phone would be verified. So the most important thing here on your profile is at the bottom, the notification settings. There are 4 different settings here. The last one's not going to apply to you as a field user, so you can go ahead and leave that one blank. But the first one, notify me when an agenda item gets assigned to me. I would strongly suggest that everybody have that one turned on, at least for email. In TSAMM, and you'll see as we go through the training, when something is assigned to you, somebody had to overtly assign that to you, meaning they probably want you to do something with it. Probably it's needing your attention. If you want to receive it by email, you would check that box. If you want to receive by text message, you would click the SMS box. That receiving those by text message is particularly helpful if you're out of the office a lot. That second one, notify me when an agenda item gets assigned to any of my groups. For you as a field user, that means when agenda items get assigned back down to your location. So maybe you sent something up to DHQ and they sent it back. You might want to be notified of that, so you would turn that one on. Notify me of any status changes to agenda items I'm associated with. So this is an important one for you to track the progress of your items through the system. And of course, as we go through the training, you'll see where that comes into play. But every time something happens to an item that you've submitted, once it gets assigned to a board meeting, once it's been approved at that board meeting, you would be getting notified automatically of that. So you want to make sure the first and third are probably the most important. So I would make sure you have those turned on. I would start with them turned on, and if you get sick of them and you get too many notifications, you can always come back and turn them off. But I would suggest that you at least start out with those turned on. So to save that, you would submit changes. So I'm going to go back home. I'm going to use the menu. The menu is here at the top. It's always there for navigation. So I'm going to go back home. This home screen looks a little empty as of now. And the reason being, there's nothing sitting here that Lieutenant Keith really needs to work on right now. What would show here is anything that's currently assigned to him or assigned to assigned to his location. Because there's nothing, it looks bare. But I'll show you how items show up there as we go through. So the next thing is how to create an agenda item. I'm going to go up to Agenda Items, Create Agenda Item, and here I get a drop-down list of all of the types of requisitions or items I might submit to board for approval. Over our work over the last year and a half with all of the divisions and THQ as well, we've come up with just over 100 different types of items that can be submitted to board. Some of them are specific to certain divisions or to THQ, so you won't see all of them, but it is a pretty long list. So instead of having to scroll through that every time, if you know what you're looking for, you can start typing that in and it'll filter the list down for you. In this case, I'm going to do an auto requisition just as an example. So I chose that, and I get a message here, and I want to take just a minute to explain that and what this message means. So because I chose the auto requisition, it's giving me a message that says the type you selected is fully functional within TSAMM. So there are two types or two categories of items inside TSAMM. One is like the auto requisition, what we call fully functional. What that means is that we've taken the paper requisition that you're accustomed to, and we've translated that into an online form. So instead of having to go and get that paper form or Excel version of the auto requisition, all you need to do is come into TSAMM and fill it out here. That's what it means when we say it's fully functional or fully integrated. Alternatively, there are items that we call non-integrated. So items that you are still going to need to go get that paper form. And there are several reasons why. There are two different kinds. Some at THQ, different departments prefer to receive things differently, so that plays a part. And then also there are certain types of items, for example, employee education assistance requests. Maybe something that's personal to them, but it doesn't really make sense to get them access to TSAMM just to be able to fill that out. Right? You'd still want to hand them the form, let them fill it out, and then you can just attach it here in TSAMM. But that's the difference between what we call integrated and non-integrated items, and this message that you receive is going to tell you which you're working with. So if you get a message that says it's fully functional, then just go right ahead. You don't need to do anything else. If you get a message that says it is non-integrated, that means you need to go find that form, fill it out, and attach it here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And the first thing it's going to ask me for, and you'll notice if you watch up here at the top, it's going to start building some information about our requisition. It knows what type it is, an auto requisition. it's given it a unique requisition number. That number will never be reused. Even if this item gets deleted, that number would never be reused, so we're not going to get those mixed up. I know that was an issue that you had in the past with some of the Excel forms would repeat the numbers. So we're safe there, but it's going to start building some information there at the top as we go through the steps. The first thing it's going to ask me for is what unit is this requisition for. So if I'm filling something out for my family store, I would probably choose family store. If it's for the core, I would choose the core. What you're seeing here is, depending on who you're logged in as, remember I'm logged in as Lieutenant Keith, and because he is the core officer in Martinsville, he has access to his core and any units that are below in that hierarchy. So if you're in an area command, for example, you would see your area command as well as the core below that area command. So you can create requisitions on their behalf. So that's what you're seeing there in that list. You can go ahead and choose one. I'll choose the core for this example. The second part down here, you see these called user blocks. You'll see Lieutenant Ruby Keith and Lieutenant George Keith. Those are the two users who are currently in the system for the Martinsville core. If perhaps they had an office manager or bookkeeper who was also on TSAMM, you would see them listed there as well. And what this is telling you is that these are the users who will have access to this requisition going forward. If it's necessary to shield someone from seeing a particular item, maybe it's confidential, maybe it's an HR issue, if you have something like that come up, you can, by unchecking the box there by their name, you can exclude them from seeing this item. And that means that no matter what happens, they will not have access to it. I'm going to go ahead and leave them checked. So that means that everyone listed here will have access to this item going forward. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And this is just going to take me step by step through this process. It's super simple. If at any point I decide I can't finish it right now, I don't have the information I need, and I want to come back later, I can choose the Save and Close button, and it will be there for me to come back and edit whenever I need to. But I'm going to go ahead and keep going forward. And basically, I'm just going to follow the steps. Whatever it asks me to do, that's what I'm going to do. The first thing it asks me for is a short description. This is what's going to become the title of your item. So you want to make it short but descriptive. Then in the larger box at the bottom, you get the what we're calling executive summary. This is what's going to take place of what you used to send as a cover letter or a justification that you used to send, maybe by email, however you sent it before. THQ has asked us to make sure that we point out this section should explain what you are requesting. They will give you some guidance up here at the top. It should state the recommended action, so what you're asking the board to do, with as much detail as possible, because imagine this item flows all the way up to THQ, who are receiving tons of these items from all of the divisions, and what they don't want to do is have to dig down into the subsequent details to figure out what you're wanting them to do. This should explain clearly what it is you want them to do and why you think it's a good idea, all of that. So THQ asked us to point that out specifically. So make sure that in filling out the executive summary that it explains from a high level what it is you are wanting them to do, and then any detail that they might need to know. And then basically what you fill out in the rest of the form is just support for that. So that's a note from THQ. I said it. I can tell them I said it. We've put some templates over here to the right just to get you started, but again, make sure you are giving as much detail as THQ or DHQ might need. After saying all that, I'm going to keep mine kind of short because I don't have time to type it all out, and I can't type while people are watching. And even though I can't see you, I know you're watching, so I'll go ahead and just leave that in there for now. So once you have your executive summary in there, by the way, this box is what we call rich text, meaning you can play with the formatting, just like if it was a little Word document. You can actually copy and paste things into this box. It can be from a Word document, a PDF. It can be tables from Excel or anything like that. It has a fairly large character size limit, so you can paste pretty much anything in there if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and click Next once I have that filled out. And then we get to the section where we are going to give some detail on the vehicle that we're purchasing. If you notice in the upper right, there's a link. It says this requisition is guided by stipulations in minute 13B. If I click that, it's going to link me straight to the auto minute, the minute that governs the purchase of automobiles. So instead of having to go out to the minute book, you can find that information very handily right there. Also, if I were to click this Find Vehicles button, it's going to bring up a list of the approved vehicles. So I don't even have to search the minute if I don't want to. We're looking for a full size, so we'll say full size passenger van. So we'll choose one of these. Of course, you can always type in something different if it's something outside the minute that you're requesting to purchase. You could always just type in whatever it is you're wanting. So the rest of this is just simply a web form. If you've bought something online, then you've filled out a web form. It's simple. It asks you the questions. Again, we copied these fields directly from the paper forms that you were used to. So that's where all of this comes from. But I'll go ahead and fill out some of it. I won't fill out every single thing because I know that you can figure that out. And I'll just keep going, next, and fill out all the sections until I get to the end. So we're trading in. But you get the idea. So fill out whatever is applicable to what you're doing. You can add some extra equipment. I keep adding more and more rows of it if I need to. This is where it's summarizing the cost for me. I can put in my sales tax amount. And of course, oops, that's a lot of sales tax. Again, this is all specific to an auto requisition. Depending on what you're filling out, you might get totally different questions. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And this is the fun part. We are actually integrated with Great Plains, meaning that every night at about 2 a.m., a process runs that pulls over fresh balances for your trust accounts, your DHQ reserve accounts, and your general operating accounts. It pulls that over into TSAMM. And here, when I click Find Funding Sources, what I'm actually seeing are real balances from the day before, right? So it runs at 2 a.m., so anything that you posted yesterday is going to be reflected here. If I just posted it this morning, that won't be reflected in the balance in TSAMM until tomorrow. But these are fresh balances from the day before, so you don't have to wait for your bookkeeper and you know, go and track down balances. And we also have here to the right of that balance the idea of encumbered funds. So these are things that are out there in the system that are drawing on this same account. So although it says I have this much, something else out there in the pipeline is already using this much. So that helps you decide which accounts you can use, things like that. All of this is test data we've been practicing at DHQ and then on the webinar we had the other day. So all of these are test items that you see here, but you get the picture. I can choose which account I'm wanting to pull the money from. Maybe I was only going to pull part of it from here. I can add another and pull it from wherever is viable. Of course, the system doesn't know what money you're allowed to use and what you're not, so it will still be up to the DHQ staff to review that once they get it. You'll see it's telling me I still need some more funds to cover this, so I can keep adding as much as I need to. If I got some money from a foundation or something like that, I could add that. We'll say something like that. Maybe that's where the rest of the money is coming from. And you see now it turned green down there at the bottom. It says this funding covers your expenses. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And then I get to, there are 2 more steps, and these are going to be on every requisition no matter what type you're creating. And that is a place to attach files and a place to attach web references. In both cases, this is something new that TSAMM is kind of bringing to the approval process, something you couldn't do before. Of course, you could always send backup documents, but here you can attach not only documents, you can attach photos, videos, MP3 files, pretty much anything. It has a pretty high size limit, and that is a size limit per item. So I could attach as many of those large files as I needed to. But to attach a file, I'll click Choose File. It will browse on my machine. You'll see down there at the bottom that item that we uploaded has been added. I can keep doing that. I can add as many as I need to, whatever it may be. Maybe in this case it needs a dealer invoice. And you can attach as many of these files as you need to. If I want to remove one, I can do that by clicking the red X. So are you sure you want to delete it? Yes, I am. Something that you can really try and use to your advantage in sending more information to the board than you used to. So for example, if you have something going on at your core and you need to repair a sidewalk and you send a request for that, but they say they don't have any money, we're going to have to decline it. If you also send along, imagine a video or a photo of that crack in the sidewalk and how dangerous it could be, you know, the board's going to have a little bit more information and say, you know, it looks like we do need to do something about this. So just to try and give them a little bit extra information that they might not have had otherwise. So try and think outside the box there is the point I'm trying to make. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And like I said, this last step is the same. It is a way for you to give some extra information that you probably couldn't before. And this is where you can attach a web reference or a link to anywhere on the web. So in this case, and you probably wouldn't do it, you probably wouldn't do it when doing a auto requisition, but imagine you are submitting a conference request, and maybe you want to send a link to the conference website or the registration form for the board to review as they are reviewing your items. So I'm going to right-click in that URL up there. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to TSAMM. I'm going to paste it in. And then I'm going to give this a title. So this is a dealer website. I'm going to click the Add Web Reference button, and it is going to pop up down here at the bottom. I can add as many of these as I need to. Of course, I can delete it if necessary. But again, this is just sending some extra information that the board might not have been able to receive outside of TSAMM. So think outside the box when you're sending requisitions and know that that's there for you. So at this point, like I said earlier, if I wasn't finished with it, I could hit save and close and come back later. But if I wanted to just bail on it altogether, I could delete and exit and it would get rid of it altogether. But I'm going to go ahead and click save and close. And that's going to take me to the completed version of this requisition. This is what requisitions look like in TSAMM. There's lots of information here on this is what we call the requisition view. You see the requisition type and that number that we gave it, the title that we gave there. You'll see what location it's for, the officers in charge of the location at that time. So this is the officers who were there at the time that this item is submitted to DHQ. So imagine that the Keiths leave where they are now in a couple years, and if you pull this requisition up, it will always say that the Keiths were there when this was submitted. So that's one way those photos are used. Of course, when DHQ opens this and when they're reviewing it for board, they see that as well. That's why they like to see the photos in there. It really gives them a picture of who this is for, so they can kind of relate it to, oh yes, this is them at that core, and it really gives them a feeling of knowing who they are affecting all over. So it tells me who this item was created by, who it's currently assigned to, which we'll get to in just a second. It shows me the status, which is created draft. It gives me an approval section, which will show the approvals once we get to that as well. In these accordions here, you can click them open. This contains all of the information that we put in through the creation process. If I'm looking through this and decide that there's a section that I need to edit, if I look all the way up at the top of each requisition, there is a pencil icon. It says edit. Anywhere in TSAMM where you're looking to edit an item, you're looking for that pencil icon. If I were to click that, it will take me straight into edit mode to the very first step of that requisition. But if I know that I want to edit a specific section, maybe it's the funding, I want to add some funding here, I can click the pencil inside that funding section, and it's going to take me straight to that step in the creation process, so you don't have to click through all the way. One thing I wanted to point out, all the way down at the bottom, the last accordion there says history and comments. Here you would see any comments that someone has left on this requisition and the history of it as it goes through the process. If I add on this data modification tab, I can actually see who created it, when, what they did, when they changed an attachment. You can see the whole history. It's logging everything that has happened to this requisition. This is something that is kind of a brave new world that the Army stepped into, where you're going to be able to see who has this at DHQ. You're not going to have to call and find out, who's working on this. You'll see exactly who it's assigned to. You'll see how long they've had it. You'll see when it's assigned to go to board. You'll see when it is approved. You'll see everything here in the history and comments. So if you're ever questioning what's happening with a certain requisition or how it got to where it is, this is definitely the place you would want to look, in the history comments accordion here at the bottom. There are a few more things I can do. Besides edit, I can add what we call sticky notes. So I click that little bubble icon up there. And I'll say, something like I can even choose the color of the sticky note. And that just sticks there at the top so that the next person that picks it up might need to know something. It's just like leaving a sticky note on a piece of paper as you pass it around the office. Just a little FYI, it's not part of the permanent record. It doesn't stay here forever, but it's there if you need it. I'll go ahead and leave that there for now. If I had a reason to send this over to someone else, maybe my bookkeeper or my office manager or someone has some other piece of information needed before we can send this to DHQ. If I wanted to change who that was assigned to, I would click the Assign To pencil. Again, I did that kind of fast. We're editing who this document is assigned to, so I'm going to click the Edit pencil in this Assign To section. And I get a drop-down of any users within my location. So because I'm logged in as Lieutenant Keith, there's only one other user. So I'll go ahead and assign it to her. But if you had multiple users, they'd all be listed here. So you could send it to whomever it is in your office you need to send it to. I'm going to send this over and say, just put some kind of note on there, and I'm going to hit submit. You'll see that the assigned to has been changed. Now it's assigned to Lieutenant Ruby Keith. But notice that I still have access to it. I'm still logged in as Lieutenant George Keith, so I still have access to this item, even though it's not assigned to me. Assigned to doesn't mean it's only for them and they're the only ones that can handle it, so if they go out of the office, you're stuck. No, you still will have access to it. It just means that it's kind of sitting on their desk. It's in their queue trying to tell them, hey, you need to do something. So I'm actually going to jump over and log in as her to show you what that looks like. So now I've logged in as Lieutenant Ruby Keith, as you can see up there in the corner. See who I'm logged in as. And this item that we created is sitting on her desk, or sitting here on her home screen. Because it's highlighted yellow, I can tell that that means this item is on my desk, meaning it's mine. Somebody wants me to do something with it. So if you find items sitting on your desk that are highlighted yellow, that probably means you should do something with them. So she's going to open it up. She sees that big sticky note there. If she goes all the way down to the bottom in the history comments, she can say, oh, here's the comment that he made. Please attach minutes. Sure, I can do that. And she can go and edit any of these sections she needed to. If he was wanting her to attach something, she can click the pencil there in the attachments box and upload a new attachment. She can do whatever she needs to do to it. She can assign it back to him. She can keep it. She can edit it. She can assign it to someone different. She can do whatever it is she needs to do with it. But assuming this was ready to go to DHQ, the next step is, how do I get it there? And before it can go to DHQ, if you see in the status section, there's a button that says submit to DHQ, but right now it's grayed out. Right now I can't click it. And it gives me a message, this agenda item must have at least one approval present before submitting to DHQ. So first I have to give this item an approval before I can even think about submitting it to DHQ. As it's currently set up, only officers have the permission to approve items before they can go to DHQ. So as it's set up right now, no staff at your location will be able to submit an item to DHQ unless it has an officer's approval. If you are one of the ones who has that ability to approve an item, you'll get that button that says add my approval. Now in larger commands or at area commands where there are staff who probably should have that ability, your DHQ will, on a case-by-case basis, set up certain employees to have that privilege to approve items. But all the system's looking for is that one approval is present before you can submit it. So in this case, I'm logged in as Lieutenant Ruby Keith, and so she has the ability to approve. So she's going to click the button, add my approval. You see her approval gets stamped here on this requisition. She could remove it if she decided she didn't want to approve that or she made a mistake. But until it's submitted, she could remove that approval. But now that the item has at least one approval, you'll notice that the Submit to DHQ button is no longer grayed out. I could actually click that now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we've gone through creating an item and approving an item. And the key there is just to know who can approve it. In most cases, it's just your core officers. So it's that simple. I'm going to go ahead and click Submit to DHQ. This is telling me, hey, you have some sticky notes on here. Do you want to remove these before we send this to DHQ, or do you not mind if they see it? Sometimes the note might be for DHQ. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and remove and then submit. So now this item is submitted to DHQ, and several things happened. You'll notice that edit pencil is gone, the one that was here in the upper right. The one that was inside all of these accordions is gone. I can no longer edit this item once it's submitted to DHQ. The status has been updated. The status says submitted to DHQ. The assigned to section has been updated, so it's no longer assigned to me, Lieutenant Ruby Keith. It's now assigned to the FS admin group, Finance Secretary admin group at NCV DHQ. So according to a set of rules that DHQ maintains, the system knows where to send what specific types of items. So you as the field user and your staff there in the local units don't have to know where each individual item goes. And as that staff changes at DHQ or as their processes change, they can manage how the items route, and you won't have to worry about knowing to send certain types of items here, but anymore. She left, now it goes here. You and your staff won't have to worry about that anymore. All you have to do is hit the submit button, and it goes to where it needs to go at DHQ. And you can see exactly who has it at DHQ. If I were to look down in the history and comments, again, it's building this log with every step. It says automatic routing per agenda item rules went to FS admin, on this date at this time. So you know they've had it since then. So that's how you can use that log. So now this item has gone to DHQ. It's kind of out of my court. Now I'm waiting to hear back on it. Assuming you have your notification settings turned on, the ones we talked about at the beginning, assuming you have those turned on, you will be notified as it goes through its process at DHQ, notified by email or text message. So first at DHQ, somebody will mark it as reviewed, then they'll assign it to a meeting, so you'll know when it's scheduled to go to a meeting. Then you will get a notification of its approval or decline or whatever it is. But say I want to find out something about an item that I've submitted previously. I'm going to click and go back home. You'll notice that the item we submitted is no longer sitting on my desk. It's not in my queue anymore. There's nothing I can do right now, so it's not sitting on my desk, but I can access it. I can find it. I'm going to click on agenda items and then existing agenda items. And this is going to pull up a list of all the items that have ever been submitted from my location, or any items that I have access to. As you can imagine, as we go on, this list is going to get longer and longer and longer and longer. I can use a filter in the upper right corner to find what I'm looking for. I can search for certain types of items. If I know the ID number, I could search for that directly. I could search for a keyword, and I could say, I know this had something to do with somebody we hired with the last name Smith, and I could filter that list and it'll bring up the record that I'm looking for. All of the reports like this can be exported to Excel. You'll see the export to Excel button there to the right. So if you wanted to do that for any reason, you could. I'm going to bring the whole list back up. So this is a short list because right now we're just practicing. These are all dummy items. But what you see here is the item number, its title, and then its status. So if you're looking for an item that's no longer at your location but that went up the chain and you want to find out what happened, or even if it happened way in the past, this is where you'll come. You can search for it. Once you find it, you'll see what status it's in, when it was created, all kinds of things. But if I want to open one, so that's the one we just created, but I'm going to open one that's already been through the process at DHQ. I'm going to open an older one just so I can show you what that looks like. You'll see here that this one has been through a board. Again, these are all dummy requisitions. This isn't real. This went through a mock board meeting, and this is what the board stamps look like. So this takes place of that blue rubber stamp and the signature that you used to see. This is what evidences the board's approval. You see the board type, the action that they took. In this case, it is approved at DHQ with modifications, and a note here that explains that, pending funding from insurance. It tells you the date of the meeting and who the chairperson was at the time. And again, if you look in the history comments, it's building that whole history, when it went to the meeting, what status it was changed to by the meeting, all the things that have ever happened to it. If I needed to print this, of course, one of the other main goals of TSAMM was to reduce some paper and try and get rid of physical paper that you're using, but of course there are going to be instances where you still need it. So what we've done is given you a little print icon. On any requisition, you can click that print icon. It's going to ask you which sections you want to print. I'm going to go to what we call the print ready view, and this is a consolidated version of all of that information that we entered before. This one prints on 2 pages. We try to get it down to 1 where possible, but depending on how much information there is, it could bleed over. But this is what an approved requisition looks like. So if you need to print these for the sake of maybe check backup and those kinds of things, this is what you would print. That shows the auditor the board's approval and all of the details they need to know. So to answer that question that I just got, this is what you would print for your records and for your audit. You won't receive a hard copy from DHQ. They're no longer going to be sending out those notifications with copies. This is where you would see it. And if you have your notification settings turned on, you'll be notified immediately as soon as the board closes and as soon as your items are approved. And this is where you would come to print that. A couple more things. There's an FAQ section. If you have any questions, anything you're looking for, you would start there, especially if it's something about how your browser is treating it, maybe what version you might need to upgrade to, some things like that. So definitely take a look there. Reports basically is just some pre-filtered lists. It takes you to the same place as, let's see, it takes you to the same place as existing agenda items, but it goes ahead and puts a filter on it for you. So that's what those reports are, just basically pre-filtered versions of that full list of existing agenda items. But that's pretty much it. That's what you need to know from a field user's perspective. We've set your profile, we've created an item, we've approved an item, and now we've submitted it to DHQ, and now you see what it looks like after the fact. But hopefully that explains what it is you need to do. It's super simple: creating items, approving them, and submitting them. It's really all you need to know. Hopefully it's going to make your life a lot easier just for the fact that you know what's happening with your items at all times. You can find them at any time and know exactly where they are. And again, those automatic notifications are really going to make things start rolling a lot faster. You're not waiting for somebody at DHQ to receive the items back from board, then process them all and write approval letters and send copies and all of that. It comes immediately. So in the divisions we've heard kind of testimonials from the field units saying what used to take 3 weeks, they can get within 3 or 4 days, depending on when you submit it, of course, and when board is meeting. But it really helps to speed things up from the field user's perspective.